and inadequate response to gender-based violence. People know and heard about horrible stories, and nobody really done anything about it. We think also exclusion of women from decision making, because of course all the decisions taken by warlords, but at the end I think women should have a role. Most of the women's organization, I work with several organization, maybe more than 20 organization. I cooperated and talked to them, had meeting, one of them in Port Sudan, one in Kassala, and several in Dongola, and one in Sinja, and all of them, any one of them are struggling to do anything. Nobody really supporting them. There is no funding, but not only funding, people are not really including them in anything. So exclusion of women from decision making is a big factor leading to this. Unsafe aid delivery mechanism, also this is something really affecting women and girls, because um, aid is distributed in a situation where there is no security, no protection, and this can lead to so many crimes. That data gap, and this is something I know is difficult during the war situation, but I think even if people who are outside Sudan, they can collect some data, and this will help the situation.
Thank you so much, Asma. We have rest for time. If there are any missed points, can we mention them during the discussion?
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's fine.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, and looking forward for the discussion.
Thank you.
And
The next is Rania Suleiman. Rania Suleiman is a registered pharmacist in Sudan, and now she's practicing in the UK as a behavioral therapist, supporting children with autism and special needs. She's a former member of the Central Committee of Sudanese Pharmacists under the Sudanese Professional Association. Rania is talking on behalf of the Sudan Women for Peace Group. Sudanese Women for Peace Group.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Sudan Emergency Response Fund, Sudan Doctors Unions, and honorable guests. Thank you for this opportunity to address to you today. I stand before you deeply grateful for this platform to shine a light on a horror that's all too familiar to my community, unfortunately, which is the deliberate use of gender-based violence in Sudan's war, and the untold stories of suffering and courage. Stories from Sudan where women continue to endure unimaginable hardship amidst conflicts. Allow me, please, to start with a story of my dear friend. Her name is Sarah. I named her Sarah just for her safety and protection, but it's a real life story of my own friend. Sarah was a proud member of the civilian resistance committees in Sudan. When the fighting intensified during this war, she risked her life working for emergency response rooms and for the Tikaya, administering food for hungry children and for their families, and coordinating relief efforts, and calling for peace on every platform she could access. Late last year, the Rapid Support Forces stormed her home. They kidnapped her and they tortured her for days. They released her after a brief release. Staff came to the area and they kidnapped her again. She was kidnapped this time by SAF-affiliated units, and this time she was tortured and brutally raped. They thought this torture and brutality will stop her from what she's doing, and they sent a strong message for every woman that dared to demand for freedom, peace, and justice. She witnessed the rape of other ladies in the same area, in the same place, for the same reason, by the same people. Sarah, unfortunately, became pregnant from the rape. She struggled intensely to terminate this unwanted pregnancy, ultimately undergoing unsafe abortion and led to serious health complications afterwards. She remains hiding in Sudan right now. She is still targeted. She is not safe. She cannot talk. She cannot speak a word. Today, her physical scars, her emotional wounds have stopped her humanitarian work and silenced her voice. She was left with the stigma, shame, pain, and grief. I'm her only support, unfortunately. But my hands are tied. As a pharmacist, I was only able to help by providing some medicines for her through some trusted colleagues on the ground who could provide the medicine and deliver them to her home. I managed to arrange an online psychotherapy for her, but unfortunately she can only access it when the internet is available. Sarah's ordeal is not isolated. Both RSF and SAF commanders have organized rape, humiliated human to subjugate communities, instill fear, and advance political agendas. This tactic reveals a shared incident ideology among Sudan's warring parties. The degrading woman will break the community, silence dissent, fracture society, and most importantly, repress the oppositions. This ideology was institutionalized under the former regime in the early 90s, using what they called the General Order Law. The gender-based violence emerged, and most severely in Darfur in 2003, and has since engulfed in the entire country during the current war. It has now spread even beyond Sudan's border. Wherever the former regime supporters operate, this ideology manifests in different forms. We saw it clearly here in London streets when women were attacked and sexually harassed in front of the Chatham House in London last October. Let me get back to Sarah. Sarah is not only an activist. She is a brave working mother. She is a widow. She is raising her children alone. She is the eldest sibling of six. She's financially responsible of her family and of her two parents. Like every other Sudanese woman living in this situation, Sudanese women have long been the pillars of the community, contributing in every phase of society, from agriculture to education, in healthcare and entrepreneurship. They are really leaders in the civil society, human rights advocacy, and grassroots movement, tirelessly championing causes that uplift the entire community. During December 2018 revolution, the world witnessed their bravery women stood at the forefront of the peaceful protest, demanding change and democracy. Stop the Kanzaka, the Libyan queen. Sudanese women became global symbols of courage and resistance. Their chants, like الطلقة ما بتقتل يقتل سكات الزول الطلقة ما بتقتل يقتل سكات الزول الطلقة ما بتقتل يقتل سكات الزول. These chants means that the bully doesn't kill. What kills is the silence of the people. This chant echoed across the continent, inspiring movement beyond Sudan's border. These women did not only march, but organized, documented abuse, and advocated for democratic governance. They envisioned a Sudan where equality and justice prevail. Despite their remarkable contributions, Sudanese women have been disproportionately affected by the conflict. Sexual violence has been persistent women in Sudan's war, from Darfur in 2003 to the current war, started April 2023. Women who once led the movement for change are now targeted. Their bodies used as battlegrounds by warring parties. The statistics I'm about to share with you are not just numbers. They are voices of mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends whose lives have been shattered. In 2004, Amnesty International documented 250 rape cases during 10-day visit to a refugee camp in Chad, with many survivors enduring gang rape. In 2014, Human Rights Watch reported over a 36-hour period, at least 221 women and girls were raped by the Sudanese soldiers in North Darfur. From April to December 2023, the United Nations documented 118 cases of conflict-related sexual violence, which majority of incidents attributed to the rapid support forces. In Khartoum, between April 2023 and February 2024, healthcare providers treated 262 survivors, including girls as young as 9 years old. In Al Jazeera, 288% increase in gender-based violence was reported in 2024, reflecting the dire situation where many incidents remain hidden. UNICEF reported that over 200 children, some as young as 1-year-old babies, were raped in Sudan since beginning 2024. Guess what? I have just calculated more than 1,000 in different states of Sudan, different years, from different organizations' reports. As you may all know, the sexual violence impact is huge. Physical consequences on the survivors, injuries, sexual transmitted diseases, unwanted pregnancies, and chronic health issues, psychological effects like post-traumatic disorder, depression and anxiety, suicidal thoughts, social impacts that the survivors face: isolation, economic hardship, displacement, and barriers to justice. In Sudan, these challenges are compounded by limited access to medical and psychological services, cultural stigma, and ongoing conflict that restricts humanitarian aid. Ladies and gentlemen, the numbers we have here today are not just the statistics. They are lived experiences. These are not merely numbers, but they are human beings. Women whose lives and future are being torn apart. We are here today not just to listen, but we must do something. We must demand for end of this war in Sudan and immediate halt for the sexual violence by urging the international and regional bodies to pressure Sudan's warring party. Call for stronger accountability measures and robust support for survivors. Advocate for International Crime Court ICC to extend the investigation beyond that force to all Sudan. As a member of Sudanese Women for Peace and Sudan Doctors for Human Rights, I promise that we will continue to amplify the voices of these women, highlight their silence, and advocate for justice and peace. I have no doubt that Sarah's story has touched every heart in this room. We cannot stand with our hands tied. Each of us has a role, from raising awareness, demanding justice, and providing support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rania. You gave us a lot to reflect on. I'm going to move on to our next speakers. From Proximity to Humanity, we have two speakers, Andrea Tracy and Razan Abdelhaq. Andrea Tracy is the Vice President of Proximity to Humanity, a new established NGO committed to rapidly channeling funds, at least 50% over here, to Sudanese emergency response rooms and mutual aid groups. Before founding the organization, Andrea served as a senior advisor of the U.S. Specially Envoy Tom Perello and led the USAID OTR program in Sudan from 2019 to 2023. Over 2 decades at USAID, she specialized in humanitarian assistance for conflicts, natural disasters, and political transitions. She has worked with the UNHCR and served as the humanitarian head of INGO Goal. Andrea has also managed to serve as a disaster assistance response teams across Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. The next speaker, also from Proximity to Humanity, is Razan Abdelhaq. Razan Abdelhaq is the founder of Proximity to Humanity, an NGO dedicated to rapidly channeling funds and less than 50% overhead to Sudanese emergency response rooms and mutual aid group. She also co-founded Proximity International, a firm specializing in research, monitoring, and evaluation in conflict zones before expanding into programs across Syria, Yemen, Jordan, Lebanon, and the US. So I'm going to just check if our connections are all right. Just let us know, Andrea and Razan, in the chat if you're able to see us and hear us.
Yes, I can hear everyone.
Yeah, we can hear. I saw the presentation 1 second ago and then it went.
Okay.
Was that you, Rizan, that you were able to share, or was it Dr. Yasser?
No, but maybe I can now.
Dr. Yasser, are you able to reshare the presentation?
Give me a second.
Yeah, just give him a second.
Andrea, maybe we can start anyway, because the first part is just the introductions.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Tracy, and I am here with my colleague Razan. I just want to say that the presentation just before us was really compelling and sad, and I'm sorry. I've managed since February to actually travel to Sudan something like 5 times. Up until last week, I was in Darfur and the Chad border, and I have to say that it has been very difficult to re-find my smile. The situation for civilians, even when they come across into Chad, is so devastating, and the lack of assistance is just so almost aggressive that as someone who's worked in humanitarian assistance for decades, I've never seen anything quite like it. You know, being in Khartoum and seeing just absolutely virtually no assistance except for mutual aid and emergency response rooms, which has been incredibly inspirational, including up to Chad last week, when all the people were pouring over the border from Zamzam and El Fasher, and the TNA emergency response room mobilized a response within 24 hours with $35,000 just getting hot meals, getting water, getting non-food items to people who had virtually nothing. And I've never quite seen people so ravenous, to be honest. It was devastating, there's no shelter, there's nowhere for them to go. And this emergency response room just was there and providing food and providing water to people for the first time in a long time. So it was inspirational at best. In terms of how we started, I was with USAID Sudan for several years, and then left 6 months before the war. And when the war started, some of the resistance committee people, great, we got the slides, had reached out and said we were pivoting to emergency response rooms. And a group of us started working with them on humanitarian assistance. But then we recognized early on that the institutional donors, the USAID, but even the INGOs and the UN were not ready, despite a lot of talk around localization and the need for it for so many years. They weren't actually ready to give money directly to grassroots volunteer organizations or lack of organization. So we worked really hard for a long time to try to get that working. And at some point, we also just said, okay, maybe we start our own organization because as a conduit, as a means of getting that money to them with their ethos in mind, that ethos being that they're volunteers, so we're volunteers as well. And it's 5%. We're working with 5% overhead. And I'll turn it over to Razan at this point. Razan, are you there? We don't have our presentation. It comes in and out. I see it.
It's okay. Hi, everyone. I second Andrea. Like this has been a very difficult presentation to listen to, the one before us, and despite the fact that we've known so much about what's going on in Sudan, it's a continuous bleeding wound, and we're honored to be part of whatever response that needs to take place. Just to continue on how we were founded, as Andrea mentioned, she basically brought attention to us about what's going on in Sudan, despite the fact that I am Jordanian Palestinian. I lived in the region all my life. We work in Jordan, Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, Gaza. Honestly, until Andrea brought this up close to my face, I did not realize the devastation that was going on in Sudan. And at that point, we had just established Proximity to Humanity, and we were like, let's just use Proximity to Humanity as a vehicle to make sure that we're able to transfer funds from these large foundations that want to support the response of the emergency relief rooms. And basically, honestly, when we started, I had no idea how far we will go, how big this response is going to be. Personally, I was praying for the end of the war anyway. I thought this was going to be a month or two of interventions. I had no idea that this is going to continue, and we're still like in the thick of it. And there doesn't seem to be a resolution in the horizon. So yeah, when we started, we realized that there is a lot of amazing work happening on the ground, and we wanted to use proximity to humanity as a vehicle to bring about this change, hopefully, into Sudan, and bring some relief to the Sudanese people. We are a bunch of volunteers ourselves, as Andrea mentioned. We have a few paid consultants just to support with legal issues, with programmatic issues. But other than that, we're really like the ultimate also volunteer group, such as the ERRs. Our structure, the coalition, when we talk about the Mutual Aid Coalition, it began with the Proximity to Humanity, which is a 501c organization, meaning that it is a non-profit organization created in the US. And then there's the Mutual Aid Sudan Coalition, which basically includes other organizations or foundations who wanted to support, such as VTOL organization or DKH. But as we continued to work, we realized that there are individuals all around the world who want to support this coalition, and they became part of the coalition. Some of them donating as little as $3, some of them donating as much as $200,000. So there were real individuals out there who felt compelled to donate to this cause as well. Part of the structure is also the Localization Coordination Council. And probably, Andrea, now I hand it over to you to talk about the funding process and how typically money gets to Sudan.
Yes. So thanks, Razan. So the Localization Coordination Council is 13 state emergency response rooms, and it goes sort of as you know, it's a flat structure. 9 Sudanese NGOs and then 6 observer INGOs. And the way that it works is either an emergency response room in a particular state, in a particular locality, will reach out and say, we need money for X, and they'll vet that through the LCC. And within 2 weeks, we'll have money on the ground. But there's also a situation, and that's typically $5,000. But there's also a situation in which it's an emergency. For instance, TNA, which I was referencing previously, where you can say, okay, you know, within 24, 48 hours, I need 35,000 based on the needs, that's also able to move. So it's very fast. And so as soon as Proximity to Humanity gets the vetted request, loosely vetted request, the money goes to the emergency response rooms, typically through a hawala. And then there's a report that's produced. There's a whole system called the F system. It's a system of forms that the emergency response rooms use and that we react to. But essentially, within 2 weeks, everyone will have received their money typically, and then the reporting comes out.
Yeah.
Yes.
For the presentation, can we go to the next, go back up. Yes, here, key milestone. No. Yeah, go back to page, I think.
Key milestone.
Yeah, key milestones, like 6, I think, page. Go one more. Yes. No, go back. Yeah. One reason I wanted to present this, and it is just, it's showing the story of this coalition in numbers. And it is very important for a reason I will state later. But Proximity to Humanity was established on May 7th. That's like the little green dot on top. And we received our first donation from someone we didn't know, like besides ourselves, on May 14th. And I think that was through the online campaign. To this day, I'm not sure how Tara knew about us, but probably she is a colleague of some of our volunteers. Fast forward, as you can see, I think by end of July, we had only been able to raise about $1,000 from individuals. Other than that, we did receive money from foundations that was sent directly to the emergency relief room. I want you to keep looking at the numbers in red. These are donations that were given by individuals. These individuals mainly reside in the United States because that's where most of our campaign is, probably during 2024. On September 28th, the New York Times published an article about Sudan by the well-known journalist Nicholas Kristof. Honestly, I was not familiar with his work, but then within a month, I understood the impact of his word. Within a month, we received $340,000. And I knew it was based on his article more or less because a lot of the checks we were receiving had some kind of a note referencing his article and how that opened their eyes about the disaster that was taking place in Sudan. Funding continued to come to us. Everything in red was coming from individuals. So we continued to receive these donations and obviously channeling them back to the ERRs based on their requests. The reason I wanted to highlight this is that if we are able to tell the story of Sudan, if we are able to share to the individual person on the street, that person will react. That person will write a check. That person will donate via the online platform. I believe with some of the advocacy work that was done in 2024, we were able to raise significant funding. However, if we're able to just push a little more, we would be able to really get more support from the individual walking in the street anywhere in the Western world, in Europe, or even in the Arab world. If we can go to the next slide, please. That would be... Yes, I'll go to this one after. Can we go to the following one? So to date, until from May 7th, 2024 till April 30th, we have received $3 million approximately in grants, more or less. And we were able to basically use 2.3 to support the ERRs and the operations of P2H. Right now, though, we are sitting on about $800,000 in funding. Some of this was sent in the first week of May, and we're looking to send obviously more money as we receive more requests. But the funding keeps coming. For instance, right now, I know that one of the reasons why Andrea was in Sudan is that she was personally supporting a journalist from the Atlantic who is writing a story about Sudan. So, I mean, I've let you, Andrea, talk a little bit more about that, but I know based on now what I've seen and what has been trending is that as soon as that story is released, we will receive more funding, and thus there will be more funding to go to the ERRs. And we just want all that money to go as soon as possible, as soon as the requests are received. If we can go back to the previous page, and Andrea, you can talk about the governance structure. Just one up, page 7. Yeah, just slide, yes.
Yeah. So the key pillars are quite obvious. It's the bottom-up governance. The decisions don't come from us. We're not the donor. The donors don't, the institutional donors or the foundation donors don't dictate where money goes. The ERRs decide how aid is distributed. It's based on the community needs, and the community is aware of how much is received and how much is being spent. So it's sort of a self-fulfilling monitoring. We are transparent. And there's great flexibility. I think if there's evacuations that are necessary, for instance, from a particular place, then we'll be able to pivot to that quickly. And then again, the 95% of the donations go directly to those in need. So we're cutting all of that administrative overhead to the extent possible. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah. Now we talked about how much we've received. Interestingly, again, just going back to the point about individuals, we've received probably 50% of the funding to the ERRs came from foundations and 50% came from individuals. So the normal person in the street is probably as can contribute as much as these foundations. From the notes we receive with the checks, it's been fascinating to see what compels people to donate. Some people, and if I can ask to go to page number 10, maybe, no, 11. Some people donate because they immediately, their heart goes out because of what they've heard, what they've read. Some people are donating because they feel it is a way to counter what's happening in the US and the cuts of funding in US aid. And we've received notes where people are saying, this is my way to say no. I care about my brothers and sisters in the rest of the world. I did take screenshots of some of these pictures. So if you can go to page number 12, sorry, I wish I can help you with that, but, or yes. One more. Yeah, so those are the type of notes we receive, and typically I would love to like just put these in a pouch and send them to the emergency rooms in Sudan, but sadly we just keep them in an electronic version. But I wanted to share some of those, like especially this one on the right. Like basically this lady was upset and mad about what's happening with US aid, and she felt that this is her way of contributing and her personal responsibility. The following picture is of a note that we've received from this man. I think probably he's in his 90s or late 80s. It's the other page, where he basically donates $10 every month, and he pledged to donate for the rest of his life, just because he feels so powerful about this cause. This page 13, I think. Or the last page, basically. And you can, I just wanted to show the note. It's cute because his handwriting is shaking, but it's the last page, yeah. So we've received 3 checks from him, and this actually month, his check came late, and we were worried that he may have passed away, but he's still kicking and supporting people in Sudan. Andrea, any final thoughts, remarks?
Yeah, so there's a couple questions in the chat. Are there any proposal guidelines? It's not really like that. So we're getting clearance to be able to support mutual aid groups outside of the emergency response rooms, and I think that's going through. So I'll share our website right here in the chat, and then also I don't know if we can share the link of the presentation. Razan, are you able to do that? I am not technically able. And then the other question is about the move by the Khartoum governor to restrict the work of ERRs. At this point, as you all know, they've been 84% stymied in their work because of the aid cuts writ large, but none of them have reached out and said that they're being blocked from actually providing the support. So I'm not sure. That doesn't seem to be a major issue. I think right now the bigger issue is funding or lack thereof. But we'll check into it. And in the meantime, I'll just put in this chat the website name, and then Razan, if you can share the presentation, or if Dr. Yasser, you can, because
yeah, I will. I just wanted also to highlight something about proposals and guidelines. So in order for us to be efficient, because obviously we are a US registered organization and we have to report to the IRS, which is the tax authority in this country, we have to vet every entity or person we send money to. So with the ERRs, the emergency relief rooms, there are probably 200, I think, of those, and it would have been impossible for us to move money that way. So in order to come up with an efficient way, we basically have the ERRs send their requests to us through the localization hub. And the localization hub is able then to prioritize where the needs are, because they are obviously from the same context. They understand the dynamics on the ground better than anyone at Proximity to Humanity. And then we receive those requests. So in terms of a process, if someone within this room believes that they have a need or a compelling need for their relief room, they can definitely contact the localization hub, and that we try to work closely and hopefully not create any bottlenecks. But like what happened in Tina, for example, Andrea was on the ground, she was able to see that need. It was already being brought up to the localization hub, and that money got transferred, I think, within a day. But in terms of for us to make sure that we're able to send the money instantly, we have one Hawala agency that we send the money to, and then they are able to transfer the money to wherever it's needed in Sudan. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay.
Thanks, everyone. We look forward to working together.
Yeah, think of us as your vehicle to donors. That's it. We're here to support you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Andrea and Razan. Are you able to wait till the end for the discussion? No, at all?
I'll try my best. It's just I have a bunch of kids waiting on me, but I will try to come in and out. And
thank you so much. So we've been behind schedule, so we're going to take like a 15-minute break, and then we will come back for a short presentation and then the discussion. Is that okay?
yes. Thank you.
Thanks.